Hello and welcome to the TV show. This is a continuation of our review of Serial Experiments Lain. Starting with, we record this in a block, which is what I'm starting with.
Yes.
But for this episode that you're watching, we'll be covering episode 5, Distortion.
And you're John, and
I'm John.
And I'm Scotto.
I think I forgot to introduce us on the last time we did Lain 2, because I'm never really sure. Because it's not a normal opening like, we're doing, because it's a continuation, so I always get a little confused.
Sure.
Anyway, yeah, John, Scotto, the TV show, Lain, episode 5, Distortion. And this opens with a voice saying, if you can hear it, then it's speaking to you. If you can see it, then it's your, and then it shows the title, Distortion. And in this set of episodes, we really start to get some answers.
Why did they call this episode The Prophecy instead of Distortion? Because they keep mentioning prophecy.
Yeah, there's a lot of talk of prophecy.
Times. In fact, there wasn't a prophecy until this episode.
Yeah, there's no talk of a prophecy.
Now all of a sudden it's a prophecy.
This batch is where we really start to get some kind of answers if you see them. And again, I've seen it many times, so I don't know. Maybe I'm picking up on things that someone for the first time wouldn't. There's also a voiceover saying mankind no longer evolves, which is not true. But then it questions what drives a creature who's no longer evolving. And it claims to be God and tells Lain that she can escape to the wired.
Right. So it's kind of what I suspected from the beginning about the connection between the wired and the real world. Just be people that disappear, or it's either they're looking from the inside out, or it's the other way around where they're actually going into this electronic world. But I have a feeling they're looking at it from the inside out.
After this three episodes, okay, because I think they kind of really spelled it out in this one. But then again, I know what's coming, so maybe not as much as I think. There's also a lot of focus on an intersection in this episode.
Yeah,
spend a lot of time at this intersection, and you find out why eventually. And also another thing that continues is Lain talking to various people and things, and they talk back. Initially, it's a doll. And then this African mask, and then her parents, who weren't her parents, they were just kind of floating in the air.
Right.
Maybe not impersonations, but symbols projected by the wired, perhaps.
And now people are starting to become like either zombies or cyborgs or whatever, being replaced by doppelgangers. So just
it's fascinating to see your interpretation of this as it goes on. The doll tells Lain that it can't tell her a story that she doesn't already know because she already knows everything. And as Lain is walking to class, and then later in a scene shortly after, Lain's walking to school. Guy hands her this box of tissues with his rainbow on it, and then her sister gets one. She opens it, and written on the tissue is something about the other side being crowded and the dead have nowhere to go.
All work and no play makes Jack a dull boy. Well, then
so you see a red herring there. That's good.
There's stuff about fulfilling the prophecy still.
Mm-hmm. Well, the prophecy isn't necessarily a red herring. The dead having nowhere else to go is kind of a red herring. There's a lot of red herrings in this series.
Okay.
They're deliberately fucking with your head, especially at this point. And then we see, her sister, I can't remember her sister's name, but she sees Lain standing in the middle of the road, like in the middle of this busy intersection, not getting hit. Right. And then she looks up at this Jumbotron and sees Lain on it. And she's kind of blinking Lain.
Yeah, enough with the blinking Lain.
And then we get a scene where Lain's in school and her classmates are talking about how she pulled off this stunt and she has no idea what they're talking about.
Right. I think they were talking about
their face. I assumed her face on the Jumbotron.
Yeah, I think that's what they're talking about.
And then the prophecy turns to Alice, who starts getting spam about it, and then her friends have all gotten spam about it. And then we start to find out about the Knights.
The Knights.
who are this elite hacker group, Knights of the Eastern Calculus, who are become. Now we get into the major players in this story. The Knights being the first of them.
Well, I mean, they don't actually. They talk about them, and I think they do a little exposition. But yeah, we're not introduced to them yet.
No, yeah. We start seeing this weird symbol. Did you connect the symbol to the Knights yet?
Yeah.
They make it kind of obvious. We get this. It looks kind of like a Freemason symbol, but it's a little more
Right.
technological, and it's the symbol of the Knights. Incidentally, when Lane is talking to her mother, the vision of her mother says the body exists only to verify one's existence. And then
They introduced us to. Was this the episode they introduced us to the housewife? I forget now.
the housewife.
Or am I thinking further ahead?
I think you might. Yeah, you're an episode ahead, I think.
Okay.
Yeah. And this is where her things get kind of weird for her sister, because they're at dinner, and then she has this dream of. Oh no! Right before she goes to dinner, she has this dream of the cars being in the intersection where she saw Lane, and the car speeding past her, and then reality just kind of melts away. And then she's at dinner with her at a diner, and she spills her coffee, and there's this thing about her about the prophecy spelled out in the coffee that's spilled. She goes to the ladies' room to recover, and she hears a door creaking behind her. She goes in to investigate. The door shuts behind her. Before this, the lights had gone out. They come back on, and the bathroom door is just scrawled with "Fulfill the prophecy."
All work and no play makes Jack a dull boy.
And then she has another vision with her father, and she asks if her father is real. And her father talks about how there may be some kind of God in the Wired, and the God in the Wired has enough power to affect the real world, which is our first hint of what's actually going on.
Okay, so wait a minute. That is face value.
Well, maybe not the God part. That's a judgment call.
Right.
But the Wired affecting the real world. That's legit.
So this wouldn't be from the outside looking, or the inside looking out. This is actually the real world, and they are influenced. The internet
real world is actually being influenced by the Wired. Yes.
Yeah.
And we get the first real taste of that, and this is the part I was waiting for, when her sister is broken. She comes home from the diner, kind of sits down in front of the front door, kind of just recovering from what happened to the diner. And then another version of her in her because she's in her school uniform at the diner.
Yeah.
She comes in just her regular clothes, and she sees herself standing. She kind of sees herself, and it's from the perspective of the one who just came home from the diner. And then we cut to the perspective of the one at home. And Lane walks over, and they kind of look to see what she's staring at. She walks away, and Lane sees this distorted version of her sister who's kind of looks like she's made out of code.
Yeah, just fading out.
And after that, her sister's never quite the same.
Well, you're right. Is that really her sister? Is I mean, they're very unclear as to what the fuck happened there. Whether she's a cyborg now, or whether she's a ghost, or whether this is really her.
Yeah. Well, the actual sister really just kind of breaks at that point. We don't really see it yet, but it becomes more of an issue later. And that's it for I was on to the next one. That's it for episode 5. We'll have episode 6 out sometime. And well, actually, it's probably going to be a couple of weeks, because we're going to put it out while we're on Thanksgiving break. So it's just going to be a couple weeks away. Until then, always remember, never forget, wherever you go in life, there you are.
There you are.